Most of us live in homes that are safe and secure thanks to modern health and safety regulations. Rickety or damaged buildings tend to get demolished for the well-being of the public, and houses are generally built in geographically safe locations. However, there are still some terrifying structures that people are happy to call home. Here are the top 10 super dangerous buildings that people actually still live in.
Amazing!
Number 10. Castel Felice de la Roca, Spain. Castel Felice de la Roca is a picturesque town in the Spanish region of Catalonia, which has been inhabited for 1,000 years, and it is not a place to live if you have a fear of heights. As the name suggests, the town clings onto a rock face. Houses sit on the edge of a 160-foot drop from the basalt crag, which overlooks the countryside and rivers surrounding the town. The narrow main street winds through the whole settlement, and the houses press in on both sheer sides of the cliff, making the place look as if it's been stretched out over the kilometer-long rock formation. The crag was originally formed thousands of years ago when a volcano erupted, and the rivers of lava eventually formed the basis for this old medieval town. Some of the oldest houses in the city center are actually made from this dark volcanic rock. Let's just hope that no one here sleepwalks out of their backyard. Number 9. Sauve Hut. A Belgian climber, Ernest Sauve, donated a mountain hut for the Matterhorn in the Alps. It was built over 5 days in August in 1915 in recognition of the fact that storms or avalanches on mountains can cost lives, and sometimes you need emergency shelter. The materials for the building were brought up the mountain by using animals and a small, temporary cable car. The hut sits on a ledge at just over 4,000 meters, 1,300 feet, up the Matterhorn on the northeast ridge, making it the highest and most remote mountain hut owned by the Swiss Alpine Club, which is the largest mountaineering club in Switzerland. It's a very simple construction with 10 beds and has only been rebuilt once in 1966. In 1976, the hut had a technological upgrade when it was fitted with an emergency radio telephone. Now, the Sauve Hut simply waits to provide food and shelter to climbers who get into trouble on the popular route to the mountain summit. Number 8. Meteora Monasteries, Greece. This next super dangerous building is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, close to the town of Kalambaka in central Greece. The Meteora, meaning hovering in the air, is a formation of huge monolithic pillars and boulders the size of hills. In the 9th century, a group of monks moved into the caverns in the Meteora, and a few centuries later, they built monasteries as high as they could on the pinnacles of the formation. This was great for them, as they could avoid persecution by the encroaching Turkish occupation, but the only way of reaching the monasteries was by rock climbing or getting hauled up in a basket by a monk pulling on rope. There were no stairs in the monasteries until the 1920s, but now there are steps, paths, and roads, so it's no longer necessary to be yanked up in a basket. Of the 24 original monasteries, 6 are still inhabited by monks and nuns. These remaining monasteries are perched on high cliffs, which now have staircases cut into the rock. It's still a really long way down. Number 7. Xiangkansi, aka Hanging Temple, China. Floods bring ruin and devastation, but some clever folk have found ways of avoiding the effect of destructive torrents of water. Take, for example, Xiangkansi, otherwise known as the Hanging Temple. This structure is said to have been built by a monk called Liao Ran in order to avoid flooding and provide a good place for silent meditation. The temple is built into a cliff 75 meters above ground. It's the only remaining temple that represents all of China's traditional religions: Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. Oak crossbeams are plugged into holes in the side of the cliff, and these beams support corridors and walkways which connect the 40 rooms of the temple. The main support structure is hidden deep in the bedrock. From a distance, it looks as if the temple is hanging in midair, hence its name. It also looks precarious, as if one broken beam would send it all crashing down. But it's remained attached to the rock face for 1,400 years. Number 6. Runwell Road, Wickford, Essex. A building doesn't have to be on a cliffside or a mountain ledge to be dangerous. Despite all the best planning in the world, sometimes your house is just in the wrong place. The Pinnock family from Essex claim that they have the most dangerous home in Britain. Over a period of 5 years, there have been 60 car crashes on the stretch of road just outside their house. Cars have flipped over into their garden, smashed into their trees, and crashed through their fence. They don't bother having a fence anymore. They regularly have to call the police, fire, and ambulance services to attend deadly incidents on their doorstep. After having to pay over $2,000 in repair bills, the family have been petitioning the local council to reduce the 60-mile-per-hour speed limit on the road. Until then, they live in suspense about when the next vehicle will come careering into their garden, or maybe into their kitchen. Number 5. Liechtenstein Castle, Germany. Liechtenstein Castle is a beautiful fairy tale building, which is not actually located in the country of Liechtenstein. It's actually in Germany, in the southwest state of Baden-Württemberg, and sits at a height of about 117 meters. Look familiar? It should. It was the inspiration behind the famous Disney castle. What makes this fairy tale castle a super dangerous building? The outer wall is built on the edge of a cliff. Also, as castles go, this is practically a baby, built in 1840, so its durability is uncertain. All the previous structures which were built on this location were destroyed. Why? Because it's on the edge of a cliff. The Dukes of Urach are its current tenants, but tourists are welcome. Just don't walk out of any of those really large windows above the precipice and plummet to your death. Number 4. Pink Houses, New York. Brooklyn tenants in the Louis H. Pink houses claim that their homes have been completely neglected by the city authorities. The Pink houses are notorious as the most dangerous projects in New York City. The stairwells are unlit, with authorities apparently reluctant to come in and replace light bulbs or do other repairs, so the building is becoming dilapidated and unsafe. The elevators malfunction regularly, so there is often no choice but to use the dark stairwells. And there aren't very many security cameras. The result of this official neglect is a dark and scary place where drugs and firearms are easy to hide and violent crime occurs. And it's not always safer when the police arrive. In 2014, a rookie cop accidentally killed a man in an unlit stairwell in the Pink houses. Number 3. The Leaning Towers of Santos, Brazil. In the city of Santos in Brazil, the waterfront is lined with high-rise apartment buildings. It should provide an elegant view from the water, but unfortunately, these buildings tilt to one side like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Unlike the Tower of Pisa, these buildings are still inhabited. Construction began in the 1940s, long before building code restrictions were brought in 1968. For multi-story buildings, the foundations should reach bedrock, which is about 50 meters deep in Santos. However, the foundations of the waterfront apartment blocks are only 4 or 5 meters deep. In fact, below the sand, there is a deep bed of slippery clay, which does not cope well at all with heavy buildings. There are about 100 leaning buildings in Santos. Residents live in fear of the domino effect. Once one falls over, won't the rest follow? Although they look like they're about to topple over any moment, structural engineers say that most buildings collapse vertically, so this shouldn't happen. Phew. Wait, most buildings? So this could happen. Number 2. Korowai tree houses. The Korowai tribe from the Indonesian province of Papua were left mostly undisturbed by the world until 1974. It's a hot, humid, and remote region of rainforest full of unfriendly animals and with a high risk of flooding. The Korowai clans have adapted to life in this inhospitable place by living in tree houses. These are not your regular tree houses. They are magnificent architectural structures made from all sorts of materials found in the surrounding jungle. The stilts are made from ironwood and help to protect the house from arson attacks by annoying neighbors. The treehouse is usually made in one sturdy banyan tree with the top cut off. The structures range in height from 6 to 12 meters, but have been recorded as high as 35 meters. The height of the houses also protects the family from the swarms of mosquitoes below. The Korowai make ladders out of dried bark and use these to climb up and down from their house. They may not look roomy, but each Korowai treehouse can accommodate up to a dozen people. Cozy, huh? Number 1. Phoenix House, Hawaii. Have you ever wished that you could live at the foot of an active volcano? Well, now you can. Phoenix House in Hawaii is only 4 miles away from Mauna Loa, one of the largest volcanoes on Earth. The house is located in the town of Kalapana, which was mostly buried by lava flows in 1986. Technically, those lava flows were from a different volcano, Kilauea. It erupted in 1983 and is still erupting. Hawaii has 5 volcanoes, and 3 of them are active. A few people still live in the town of Kalapana, but they need 4-wheel drive vehicles to get in and out. Mauna Loa hasn't erupted since the 1980s, but as it's historically erupted every 15 years or so, it's probably overdue. You can currently rent the 1-bedroom Phoenix house through Airbnb. The host, who lives right next door, named the house after the mythical bird which rises from the ashes, symbolizing the cycle of death and rebirth. Let's hope that cycle doesn't come around again too soon. What's the most dangerous building you've ever heard of? Tell me about it in the comment section. Also, remember to subscribe so you won't miss out on our new videos. Also, remember to click that bell icon to stay updated. Thanks for watching.